Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Yerchai HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Quan Watt of the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp, coming with a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And just real quick, man, preparing for camp, reading over some articles, and through the spirit, you can tell, right, that all these nations, right, agree with the plan of the coming technocracy, right? They just can't agree with each other, you know. That's why we see, the so-called Middle Eastern tensions. That's why we see, Trump and China, having this meeting right now, whereas they did yesterday, speaking on Iran, speaking on various things, geopolitically, right, as we got pulled up here, right, because they met with Xi Jinping, but like I said, that their meetings came without any substantive agreements, man, on key issues. So they don't agree, right? They all agree with the coming mark of the beast. They agree with the globalist agenda, right? But they don't have that agreement between each other, and that's why I have here pulled up Psalms 83, because they're in agreement that they have to, what's the word? Jockey for position, so to speak, right? In this coming new world, right? Right, but what they want to do is completely wipe Israel, right, out of the equation, right? Now this is Psalms 83:1. I read this in the NLT. It says, "O Most High, do not be silent, do not be deaf, do not be quiet, O Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Don't you hear the uproar of your enemies? Don't you see that your arrogant enemies are rising up?" Right, and they're all in agreement with that, right? Doing whatever it takes to rise up against Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? To try to wipe the thought of Yahweh Shai out of the earth, as you read in Revelation 12 chapter, right? As it talks about the scriptures talk about how he was crossed out, right? That they want to take the memory of that legacy, right? That heritage, that seed line, right? That family out of the earth entirely. And that's a part of what this new coming new world order, right, is trying to establish, right? It says, "Don't you hear the uproar?" It's like, "Don't you hear the uproar of your enemies? Don't you see that your arrogant enemies are rising up? They devise crafty schemes against your people. They conspire against your precious ones." And that's, right, what you see taking place on a day-to-day basis, man. None of these nations are innocent, right? They all have a hand, right, in the downtrodden nature of you Israelites, man. Right, you Negro, Latino, Native Americans, Hispanics, right, so-called West Indies, right? They're all, right, in lockstep with each other in keeping you down. Now, everything else they disagree on, right? But one thing that they can come to the realization of is that they have to keep you in a downtrodden place, right? And that's why they disagree on almost everything except for this, right? It says, "Come," say they, or "Come," they say, "let us wipe out Israel as a nation. We will destroy the very memory of its existence," right? And that's what they want to do, right? Let me see here. Oh, wait, no, that's not how it's selected. This is Revelation 11:8. I'll just read from here. It says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified, right? And that's what this is, man. It said we will destroy the very memory of its existence. That's what they seek to do, right? But the Spirit of the Lord is allowing the memory, the legacy, right, to continue on, right? That Spirit is going out throughout the earth, and that's why things are intensifying the way they are, right? Because the Yahushua is going to make His presence known in the earth, very soon, right? It says, verse 5, this was their unanimous decision, right? They were all on one accord, man, right? One consent, right? Nobody was, what's the word? Dissenter or whatever, right? And that's why we're seeing, right, geopolitically, right, the only thing they can agree on is the continuing of this technological world, being pushed, right? The continuing of the AI data centers, the continuing of these microchips and things of that nature, man, right? The forwarding of the mark of the beast, this technocratic, what's the word? Dystopia, right? Right, where they have all the information, where they have the social credit systems in place, right? That's why Trump is over there now, because they see that China is a so-called thriving, what's it called, social credit score system, man, right? And they want to implement that over here, so they had to go there to learn, right? China's going to be used to implement, right, what's the word, build these things up in America. Right? And so they have to be, right, in some type of agreement. It says, this was their unanimous decision. They signed a treaty as allies against you, right? So they agree, right, to do whatever it takes to come against you Israelites, man, right? They agree to do whatever it takes to try to wipe the name of the Lord out of the earth, right? The memory of Yahweh Shai out of the earth, to try to put themselves up as gods, right? Those omnipotent beings in the earth, right? They agree on all those things. It's the in between stuff, right? Right, the China and Taiwan and Russia and Ukraine and Iran and the surrounding so-called Middle East, right? All that stuff is what they can't agree on. Who's going to be the next power, right? The next superpower in this coming world order, right? That they're trying to establish. That's what they can't agree on, right? And that's what, World War III is going to ultimately be the catalyst, right? That's going to be the catalyst of, World War III, right? But in regards to the technocracy, the pushing of the microchip, right? That mark of the beast, right? Keeping Jake downtrodden, right? They always agreed on that, right? It says, yes, this was their unanimous decision. They signed a treaty as allies against you, right? So now what we're seeing is, though they allied themselves together to come against, Israel, they're they're losing those friendships, man, right? That's why it says in Isaiah 47, in the last verse, it says, "And all your friends," Isaiah 47:15, "and all your friends with whom you've done business since childhood will go their own ways, turning a deaf ear to your cries." Because Babylon the Great has been separating itself, slowly but surely from the rest of the world, man. And now they're trying to get back into good graces, right, in order to continue on in this new world order agenda, man, right? To continue on, right, pushing for, right, the mark of the beast ultimately to be implemented, right? Let's get one more in Obadiah 1. I think it's 7. This is Obadiah 1:7 in the NLT. All your allies will turn against you, right? Because they don't agree on anything else, man, right? They agree to keep Jake at the bottom, and they agree that they have to, have this total control system implemented, man. Everything else they're in disagreements about, It says they will help to chase you from your land. They will promise you peace while plotting to deceive and destroy you. Your trusted friends will set traps for you and you won't even know about it. And that's what's happening right now is though they're, having these handshake deals in front of the cameras, behind the scenes, they're plotting and scheming against America, man. Right? While America is plotting and scheming against China or against Iran or against Russia, right? All these nations are trying to work backdoor deals, right, to try to get the upper hand on each other. Again, they're just jockeying for position, right, to try to maintain power or to gain more power, right, in the system that they're planning to set up, man. So going back, Psalm 83, we can see that, just going back to this article. Let me see here. Just between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, right? They don't agree on much, man. Right now they have these gestures of good faith, like them allowing the Chinese tankers to exit the Strait of Hormuz. Right, what else they got? But Trump is over there. They're trying to maintain Taiwan as a bargaining chip, man. Right, while China is trying to completely control Taiwan. Right, and in reality, the United States should have no say in what China's doing with a land that belonged to them in the first place, right? But this is all things that are going to lead up to World War III, you know, because those tensions are going to continue to grow, right? Now let's go back here. We'll finish this out. This is Psalms 83 and verse 6 in the NLT. These Edomites, right, going into the so-called white man, right? These Americans, these Russians, these Israelis, right? The Europeans, all right? These are all Edomites, man, right? Ishmaelites, right? So Ishmael being the Iranians, the right, the so-called Middle Eastern, right? The Moabites going into China, the Hagarites, the Gebalites, Ammonites going into the Japanese, the Amalekites going into those Israelis, man, right? The chief house of Edom, right? The people from Philistia and Tyre. Assyria has joined them too and is allied with the descendants of Lot, right? So they're all in alliance together, man. It says, actually, let's jump down. Actually, no, we'll keep going. Slide. Verse 8 or verse 9. Do to them as you did the Midianites and as you did Sisera and Jabin at the Kishon River, right? And those are the princes, right, of Midian, and they were put to death. It said they were destroyed at Endor, and their decaying corpses fertilized the soil. And this is what's going to be happening in the Valley of Decision, man, right? Yahweh Shaphat, right? That World War III that's going to be taking place, right? Those bodies are going to be, fertilizer, man, right? They're gonna they're gonna fertilize all the those lands out there, with that great death. It says, "Let their mighty nobles die as Oreb and Zeb did." Right? Let all their princes die like Zabah and Zalumna. Right? And that's what we're seeking for. Right? Asking the Lord to bring a stop. Right? To all these so-called nobles, man. Right? Because there's nothing noble about these men. You know. Right? From Xi Jinping to Trump to Putin to what's the Netanyahu, right? All of them, you name it. All these prime ministers, right, going up to those royal families, man. They're all right. Like it says, let all their mighty nobles die, as Oreb and Zeb did. Let all their princes die, like Zabah and Zalmunna, right? For they said, let us seize for our own these pasture lands of the Most High, right? So, like it said in the KJV, it says, let us take ourselves the houses of the Most High in possession, right? Going into the people, right? Going into the lands, right? They want to control, right? The Most High's possession, right? They want to take Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai's people and convert them over to their own, to themselves, right? And how are they going to try to solidify that is through that mark of the beast, man, right? Because with Jake taking that chip, that's you giving your power over to an idol, man, right? In perpetuity now, right? And that's what they're seeking to do. Put people in a state of desperation into to the point that they're going to be willing to bow the knee, but the elect are going to refuse. Right, as the scriptures say, there's 7,000 that will not bow the knee to the image of Baal. It says, verse 13, "O my power, scatter them like tumbleweed, like chaff before the wind. Set a fire, it's like as a fire burns a forest, and as a flame sets mountains ablaze, chase them with your fierce storm, terrify them with your tempest." And that's what is coming, man, right? Isaiah 19, right? He's coming with clouds, man, right? Various other scriptures that he's coming with clouds. He's coming with that tempest, right? That destroying wind being the nuclear missiles, man, right? Chase them with their fierce storm and terrify them with your tempest, man, right? The spirit of the Lord coming into the earth itself is gonna terrify them, man. But like it says in Second Esdras, right? They will be afraid, and yet there's fight, because we have to have that final showdown, you know, and the Lord has to show His complete power right over this entire earth, man, you know, and that's what this verse is asking the Lord to do, man. Right? It says, chase them with your fierce storm, terrify them with your tempest, utterly disgrace them until they submit to your name, O Lord. Right? And all these nations outside of Edom are going to submit themselves, man. That's why Edom has to be completely wiped out of existence, right? Because they're still going to be in that, what's the word? A rebellious mindset, right? They're still going to have the mind frame of, trying to come against the Lord, you know? But like it says in Psalms, I can't remember what it is. Let me get that. It says, let all nations who refuse to serve thee. Yep. It's Psalm 9 and 17. The wicked shall be turned into hell, being a low estate, right? And all the nations that forget the Most High, right? So that's what's going to be happening, right? Is they're going to be put in the lowest estate, right? The world is going to be flipped on its head, man. Right side up, rather, right? The bottom are going to be the top, and the top are going to be at the the very bottom, man. Lower than low, right? And like I said, all nations that forget the Most High. So those who refuse to submit, right, are going to be destroyed. Verse 17, let them be ashamed and terrified forever. Let them die in disgrace. And that's the memory of Esau Edom, man, right? I think it's Job 18, Job 20, 20th chapter. All speak of, right, the end of the wicked, man, right? The last memories, right, of Esau Edom. Let them be ashamed and terrified forever. Let them die in disgrace. Then they will learn that you alone are called the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, and that you are the Most High, supreme over all the earth, right? And that's what's being established, man, right? So just going back to the title of the lesson, man, all these nations, they're disagreeing, right, geopolitically, but they agree on this one thing, man, and that's to do whatever it takes to keep Jake separated from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, and to establish this new world system, right, which is in itself an attempt to separate you further from the Lord, So just a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai when the close by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Recha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. Kwame Asharala in the Bible Ball. Shalom.